So, you've learned there is a way to increase the size of your D. You're excited as fuck. You go to totalmanshop.com, purchase the biggest package they have. You fly past all the content, even the video course on how to do it fast and safe, because you are so confident in not only these devices, but your ability to do it right from the get-go with the little that you know. 2 weeks in, your D falls off and you're off to the emergency room. I'm just joking. I've never actually heard of that happening before, but that is why in this video, I want to go over 5 ways to make sure you don't break your D or cause any kind of injury or deformation that's going to be less than optimal in the journey of increasing your D size. I mean, after all, let's say you did add 2 inches, but the next time you get down and freaky and you whip your pants down and, you know, your lad's all mangled, I mean, that's not a good look.
Oh my God.
I had a problem.
So, let's keep that fella in nice, pristine condition. Even if it's not a major injury, let's even stick away from the minor injuries. And that's why I want to create this video, to help you understand how you're going to do just that. After all, fellas, you've only got 1 D. Let's take care of it. Now, just remember, there is somewhere in the world, these Buddhist monks are pulling some hefty weight. Like, I'm talking, there is a video somewhere, whether you can find it or not, I've struggled to. There was a Buddhist monk pulling a private plane with his D. All right, so this in of itself just speaks into how strong it can be, how strong the tissues down there can get. And yet another reason why you need to follow my content and make sure you do things properly if you don't necessarily want to get stronger, but rather longer, okay? Or just increased in size. There is a particular tissue down there that if treated in a certain way, you will be butting up against steel, okay? The fascia has been measured to have the same tensile strength as steel. So if you work on the tissues in a particular way, you're not only going to trigger this particular tissue as a protective reaction, you're just going to continue to make those connective tissues a lot stronger. Now, what I have heard of though, is guys tearing ligaments, even rupturing connective tissue, rupturing blood vessels, arteries, veins, capillaries, causing blistering, bruising, deformation. Guys, there is massive risk with this, from minor all the way to major. But please, I want you to understand, I think the reason that there is risk with this, that may even come in the form of horror stories, is because this is so taboo and controversial that people aren't talking about it, and just talking alone, communication alone. Like if you were to go to the gym, like everyone's working out, if you really didn't know and you wanted to just double check, just make sure that you're doing this squat properly, you could probably just speak to the person next to you to be like, hey, got any pointers? All right, you can't do that with this kind of thing. Or it's not that you can't, it's either might be a little bit weird, a little bit strange. I think people aren't necessarily going to be too open to it, but it's such a topic that's kept behind closed doors that guys don't even think it's okay to talk about. And it's why I want to make this video. Plus, we have also built a community for guys to discuss this type of thing, to make it feel more open, to actually mitigate the risks by talking about it, by double checking. If I haven't made the content, you know, there are guys that have gone through what you're going through right now, and you can talk to them about it. So that was all just to say, whether it's this goal, whether it's literally anything else in life, there are risks. You could go into the gym, do a squat wrong and break your fucking back. You know, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 ton plus missiles every day that we zoom by and we don't even blink it, like we don't even think about it. Vehicles, traffic, but there are rules and discussions and communication and signs and even governing bodies to make sure that the risks are extremely mitigated. All right, so there are things in place Just because there are risks doesn't mean you shouldn't do them whatsoever. There are risks with everything. So please don't run away with the horror stories and think that is the only thing that happens in this industry, because as you'll find, and I'm sure there might even be comments underneath this video, please, everyone that's gotten results, comment below of guys getting amazing results and the results changing their life and done in a way that they're not screwing the rest of their life. They're not putting, other higher priorities on the back burner just for this goal. So just keep that in mind. All right, finally, point number 1, stupidly hard is easy. What do I mean by that? You need to keep in mind that when working the tissues, especially when done with devices, because it can be so passive and easy, all right, you put it on, other than adjusting and before taking the device off, you could go pretty intense. Sometimes it might feel a little uncomfortable, but you'll be surprised on what you can get away with, especially when you start conditioning for it, meaning you're building the tolerance of the tissues being able to handle more and more weight without you going too far. I think most guys will be surprised on how much traction and load and intensity the D can handle. Now, why I want to say that too intense or hard is actually easy is because take the gym, for example. To build the muscles up, you need to work them out. And when you work them out, you are faced with a tremendous amount of resistance called fatigue. And essentially your energy breaking down dramatically during the set. And by the end of the workout, you're stuffed. You don't even want to look at weights anymore. But with PE and increasing your size, technically you could go all day. Other than actually running into discomfort or maybe conditioning issues such as abrasions or irritation, like you could easily push the tissues too far. And I've heard of this too many times to count. And it's usually the reason people run into issues because maybe one day they were just feeling really good. And I'm all for listening to your body and listening intuitively, feeling you're, good to go, which is good. Being fresh on a day and being able to actually action all the volume that might be required on a specific day is amazing. But you might also feel like you just really want to speed up your results. So you increase the intensity or the volume dramatically, and there's not much resistance. Like you could dramatically increase it without feeling the resistance that you would, let's say, in the gym, because you're not necessarily squeezing your muscles and using up energy. With the D, you're just stretching a various number of different tissues. So the best way to go about this is using progressive overload, but in a combination of being able to track, so you've got a certain amount of volume, not too much that you cause what's called a protective reaction, tightening up those tissues to steel, but also enough so you're not doing so little that you're not causing any change whatsoever. And at the same time, you're slowly increasing the volume to the tissues that are adapting, and also making sure you're not pushing the limits too far to make sure the other tissues that are more to do with conditioning actually keep up as well, so you're not facing irritation or anything that's going to halt the entire journey. Now, I go into a lot of detail in the PE course at totalmanperformance.com. You can check it all out there. It's a 4-week course. Even if you didn't speed the videos up, 30 minutes a day, you get through what took me essentially 15 plus years to get through. Point number 2 is be whole to reach your goal. All right, be whole to reach your goal. What do I mean by that? Now, this is quite literally where Total Man and the brand name came from. All right, you're not increasing your size and calling yourself a total man. Rather, being a total man gives you access, unlocks your ability to gain more size. You need to take care of yourself from a holistic perspective. Everything of your health, fitness, wellness will contribute to the bedroom. All right, if you don't know that already, that is how it is. Hardness, stamina, everything in the bedroom to do with your sexual performance has so much to do with the nervous system. If you're able to improve that by improving your overall health and wellness through sleep, hydration, proper diet, proper training and movement, you're going to dramatically improve all of the benefits to do with sexual performance, hardness, stamina, size. But if you don't, you also get all the adverse effects as well. So if you don't hydrate, you don't sleep properly, your diet is trash, maybe you don't work out. Now, this is essentially going to increase your overall systemic stress. Then while you go to add local stress, All right, this is going to increase your risk of injury. Not only are your tissues going to be that much closer to thinking that they need to react out of protection because your overall stress, like just at a baseline starting point, is so high, you may also be at risk of your body just not being able to keep up, because it's one thing for the body to try and protect you by tightening everything up. But if your body is not healing and you're just continuing on a daily basis, you're that much closer to causing an actual injury. So just think of everything as a very holistic approach. The more you're able to turn your body into just one big healing machine, you're going to be that much further away from the risks and injury, and that much closer to your final outcome and your goal. Point number 3 is be real to help you deal. What do I mean by that? Realistic goals and a realistic regime is going to be your best friend. Now, it is so unfortunate that this industry is known as just one big scam, and it's no wonder, because I think its very nature of being so taboo and controversial leads companies to think that they can exploit guys because they're not going to, go to their best friend and complain about that company that ripped them off, because this goal has everything to do with potential insecurities that guys have, and they don't want to tell their friends about their insecurities. So this may lead companies to really lean into marketing in a way where they just don't care about the outcome. AKA 2, 3, 4 inches and 2, 3, 4 months with this one golden and glorified product. So imagine that. They don't have anything to sell you. Their job is to sell you this one tool, and they get to use any of the marketing they want because there is so little risk of this feedback or reviews getting out into the public, because guys just don't want to share it with their friends. They just think, I'm just gonna take that as a loss. And why do I say all this? Is because if there is more of this by many different companies trying to exploit guys by over-promising and under-delivering, well, then guys may have the perspective of maybe it should take 2, 3, maybe 4 months to gain this ridiculous amount of gain. Now, why is this risky? Because if you expect to get that amount of size in that amount of time and you don't, you're going to get annoyed. This could do one of two things. You may give up the very results that you could definitely, realistically achieve because you've thrown in the towel. And you thought if you couldn't get to the results in that amount of time, the whole thing's a scam, or maybe it's not for you. Or 2, you try to do something drastic. Maybe you think it was your fault or it's the product, and then you just try to do something that was not recommended, such as taking things to extreme levels. Maybe increasing intensity dramatically, thinking more is better, but unfortunately only increasing the risk. So what is realistic? I personally believe, with my experience, that most guys, I think, should be able to achieve another 30% in length and 30% in girth, if, depending on the regime that they stick to, and there is a key point in there, consistency is key, 1 to 2 years for better results, a lot safer and more realistic. With so many variables going on in life, I'd more likely lean into 2, even 3 years. Again, the more time you can give to this, the better, the safer. But I'd say anything between 1 and 2 years, if you really stayed consistent with it. Like if you were close to perfect with this, is, whatever perfect means, I think adding 30% length and girth is definitely realistic. So imagine if you give yourself, all right, so I've now told you, if you were extremely consistent and efficient throughout your entire journey for the next 2 years, that is when you could add 30%, potentially even pushing it out to 3 years. So now with that mindset, imagine getting a year in and only seeing a little bit of results, but now you remember me saying like a close to perfect routine with a lot of consistency. But then you think back over the past year and there was a month where you didn't do it. There was a couple months where you didn't get a device working right. And now you're trying to build in a little more realism. All right, so taking into all those considerations, now you think, okay, maybe I'm exactly where I need to be, and maybe this might take a couple more years, maybe more. All right, so you're not throwing in the towel, and you're not doing anything crazy or extreme that could be putting you at risk of injury. All right, you might be on the perfect path, but because your perspective and your understanding of it all was completely skewed, that's where the risks come from. All right, point number 4 is the more gear, the more you can steer. What do I mean by that? I literally have built this brand to have content, to have products that I wish I had when I began. So the understanding, the principles, I honestly, like, this could have sped up my journey, saved me headaches, money, time, so much, which is why I provide this content. Plus, full disclosure, I obviously have a brand, totalmanshop.com, where you can find all the products. If you take all the value from this video and you go somewhere else to buy other products, I honestly do not care. I don't mind. But I just wanted to mention that as full disclosure, because this is not me pushing you to buy products or even more products than you may need. But I essentially built a product line that I wish I had, and each and every product came from, it was inspired from what I wanted to use in any given moment. And due to the principles that I think make PE possible and results possible at all, because of a variety of tools, I personally believe in a tool for every situation and circumstance. This goal can definitely be a full-time job. And I think because of the nature of how the tissues operate, a lot of consistency is needed. And just to mitigate risks, I personally believe in more time and less intensity. All right, intensity at the right time and the right moment, but more time nonetheless. And to be able to do that without impeding on your life, right? So, you live a realistic lifestyle, you go out in public, you're a normal human being. There are tools for that. And I think to be able to have a tool for every situation and circumstance, like if you're at home, you're at a desk, there's a tool for that. If you need to move around, but you're still in the privacy of your own home, there's a tool for that. If you need to go out in public, but you're wearing pants, there's a tool for that. If you're out in public wearing shorts, there's a tool for that. There are accessories that work with each and every one of these tools to help better the experience, to help you improve your results. So again, I just mentioned, full disclosure, I obviously run a brand, so I may sound biased, but I'm just saying I have built this product line because each and every tool is something that I use, okay? And everyone else gets the benefit from these tools. And I honestly believe if you check the products out and you just keep them in the front of mind while you're going about your day, you may think, okay, I understand now. Like, if I had that tool, I would not have had the excuse to not get that time that Mike was talking about in this very moment. Not to mention different attachment types, such as a vacuum chamber versus a compression hanger. 2 different attachment types, even if you're doing the same therapy, let's say through traction or traction therapy, the different attachment types cause different external stresses. So you're able to offload the amount of stress caused on, let's say, the skin, for example, what I consider a secondary tissue. So you're able to almost divide up the stress, but still get the same outcome of the traction or the necessary or required volume you need for any given day. So whether it's dividing up the stress externally to the tissues, or you've got more tools for every situation and circumstance, the last thing you want to do is feel like you missed out on potential time to accumulate volume and then try to make up for it because you only had one tool in the day. All right, but if you were to make up, let's say if your day changed and you weren't able to, let's say, compression hang in the morning, but you had all this other volume to accumulate for the day to stick on your progressive overload trajectory, you could then try to accumulate a bit more volume with a different device. If you were in public, maybe you just needed to do a little more time with, let's say, an all-day vacuum stretcher. And the last point is, I think, a very, very important point, and that is less is more with cycling. Just like training in the gym, I think the best approach is to make sure that you approach it with cycles. As you steadily increase using the principle of progressive overload, you eventually get to a point where your muscles might not be recovering as well, or your whole nervous system. So on a systemic level, your energy is lower, you're feeling a little more fatigued, a little more run down. This is a great time to take a break so that you can go back to the start again. And the same can be said for this journey. So as I mentioned, with progressive overload, the day you start is the day the tissues try to keep up and adapt to the stress that you need to forever start increasing. All right, so not too much that you cause a protective reaction, but not too little so you're not causing any change whatsoever, but also enough so that you allow the external tissues or the secondary tissues such as the skin to keep up with conditioning. so you're not getting to a point where irritation in of itself is halting your entire journey. But with each and every tool that you use, and hopefully there's a variety to suit, again, every situation and circumstance, there is a safe working capacity with every tool. You never want to go above that. If anything, you want to stay as far underneath that, maximum weight to use. And I have a recommendation for each and every tool that you should never hit or go above. And I think everyone's going to be different. Maybe everyone's ceiling will be different. But again, from my personal experience, I think lower is better. Anytime you're able to lower the intensity, the better it is. And the way you can do this, and especially since you need to follow the principle of progressive overload and continually increase, is you'll get to a point where hopefully you will be able to make your cycle as long as possible, all right? But sometimes it might be 4 weeks, sometimes it might be 8 or 12. And usually the more time you use on either a daily or every other day basis, the longer your cycle is going to be. The less time you have to contribute to this, the more intensity you will end up needing to accumulate that progressive overload volume, which also means you're that much more likely to hit that safe working capacity sooner and thus need to take a break or end that cycle a lot sooner. But the more time you have, the more time you can use first to accumulate that volume, and thus you're most likely going to extend the time you can have a whole cycle for. But the point of a cycle is so that you can desensitize your tissues so that you give them a break, and then let's say it's 1 or maybe 2 weeks under a very low intensity, or maybe you're doing nothing at all. The tissues fully heal again. So the tissues that were under stress, they're not under stress, so they start relaxing again. The external secondary tissues, such as the skin, they're going through so much less stress, they're able to completely heal. So by the time you use much less weight, the skin is not only going to be more tolerant, but for the primary tissues, the ones that dictate our size and the ones that we're trying to target for size, they are so much more susceptible to even lower volume once again, making lower volume more effective and starting yet another cycle. So remember guys, stupidly hard is easy. And to combat that, progressive overload. Be whole to reach your goal. Make sure that you're taking care of everything, mentally, emotionally, physically, everything to do with your health, wellness, and fitness. Be real to help you deal. Make sure that your goals are realistic. Understand the actual time span of this entire journey and make your goals realistic. I mean, if you really want to add 5 inches, just rethink it, okay? We've got a certain amount of tissues that we're working with, and you're going to get to a point where the results are going to almost max out. I'm not saying it's impossible to gain more than 30%, but I think that's a realistic goal where you're not going to spend crazy amounts of time reaching past that. But if it is your goal to get even more results than that, then go for it, but just remember, even more time. And I think it's a general consensus that there is a massive increase in effort and time involved to get even less results. So just getting another 5% could take you an additional whole year. So just keep that in mind as well. The more gear, the more you can steer. So the more versatile you can be in every day, having no excuse to get the necessary time, in my opinion, under wraps. And less is more with cycling. Just remember the safe working capacity with every single device that you end up using. That could change from every person to person. So just make sure to figure that out for yourself. And just remember, as much as you want your goal and you want to continue, trust me, it's easier said than done to get to week 8 and you've got such good momentum to then have to take a break. But it is very much like taking 1 step back for you to take 2 or 3 steps forward. I hope this video helped, guys. For more content like it, check out totalmanperformance.com, and for all your devices and courses with money back guarantees, check out totalmanshop.com. As always, guys, be the man you know you can be. I'll see you in the next video.